The talk of today will be unveiling Nuxt DevTools and the Nuxt extension. But before we begin, let me introduce myself for those who don't know me. My name is Selemon Brahanu. I'm a front-end developer working with Vue and Nuxt, and I'm also an open source contributor. I like contributing to open source projects and learning more about them, and how they were built, the tools that were used to build them, and how they came to be. So you can find me on my social handles on GitHub at SelemonDev, and also on Twitter, it's the same at SelemonDev. And I'm sure on Twitter or GitHub, you have seen my profile picture. So we had various sessions. The first session, we introduced Nuxtr, and we talked everything to do about Nuxtr. And then the last session, we talked about rendering modes. And now in today's session, we are stepping into the features session, whereby we'll be talking about the Nuxt DevTools and the Nuxtr extension. Then after that, we'll be looking at the tools used to build Nuxtr. Then lastly, we'll be looking at deployments. But before that, I owe you guys something. Last time, I wasn't able to show you the demos about rendering modes and how they behave and how they become built, and also the advantages. I never showed you that. Allow me to demonstrate all those to you right now. So if I could share my screen and take you to the VS Code, whereby this is a movie app created by the Nuxt team to showcase the capabilities and power of Nuxtr. So we are in the nuxt.config.ts, and if I could start the dev server. So if we head over to localhost 3001, so Nuxt is starting. And if I take you back to my VS Code, you'll actually see that we have the Nuxt DevTools enabled, and its version 0.6.7, which is still experimental, which is kind of really, how can I call it? It's really, I can't say it's weird, but it's impressive because the features that I'm about to show you, you'll think that Nuxt DevTool is actually complete, but actually it's still experimental, and there are more features coming and being added on it each and every day. So if we go back here, we can actually see our Nuxt movie app has actually loaded. And it's just a simple movie application whereby we can navigate to different pages and actually see the different movies that are on there. So by default, a Nuxtr application out of the box is universal. It uses universal rendering out of the box, which is a mixture of both client-side rendering and server-side rendering. So out of the box, it uses universal rendering. So, if we can first start by demonstrating how client-side rendering works in Nuxtr, we need to do something. We need to go to the nuxt.config.ts file and change or add the SSR property and set it to false. So let's do exactly that. So if I bring you back to my VS Code once again, and beneath the modules array, I can set the SSR property and set it to false. So the moment I do this, what Nuxt will go ahead and do is it will actually update, it will detect that the nuxt.config.ts file has been updated and it will reload the server again. As you can actually see down here, it has restarted the server again. So by us setting the SSR property to false, what we are telling Nuxt is, hey Nuxt, now our application is client-side rendered by setting the SSR property to false. So if I go back to my browser, so here we are. And so if you remember last time when we talked about client-side rendering, how it works in Nuxt3 and how it all happens, and we talked about the steps that takes place, the first step being a request is sent to the server by the client. Then the server responds by sending back an almost empty HTML page with only a reference to our JavaScript bundle. Well, is this true? Well, let's see it. If I inspect and head over to the networks tab, and if I refresh my application again, and I head over to all requests, and if I head over to the localhost, we have the headers tab whereby we see the request URL, the request method, and then in the preview, it's actually loading. There's nothing, it's just an empty page, white page, which is actually loading with the Nuxt logo. And if we head over to the response tab, we actually see something. What is in here? We just see an HTML file with some script and link tags and some styles. And if we check down here, we have two scripts. But the second script, which is beneath the first script, is actually an entry point to our application. So here it is. Nuxt dist app entry.js. So when web crawlers come to your site, this is what they actually see. Me and you see this side. We see the left side and we're like, okay, we see everything. We see the images, we see the titles. And if I actually click on one movie, it will take me to that ID and show me that specific movie, the details of that specific movies. Me and you can see that, but the web crawler will only be seeing this. This is what the web crawler will be seeing. And that's why, hence we say that client-side rendering is it's not good for SEO at all, because all of our content, all of our data, images, descriptions, they're inside a module and it's inside there, and the web crawler wasn't designed to go inside there. So if I could show you this in a bigger screen, if I go view page source and I click on line wrap, you could actually see that this is actually what the web crawler finds. So let's assume now that I'm the web crawler. This is what I see. I see nothing. I see no title, no description, no photos at all. I see nothing. This is what I actually get to see. And so my conclusion is that there's nothing here. But you as the user will actually get to see this, but me as the web crawler, I see this. So let's move on and see. But even before we move on, let's test something. Let's do something. So I have a JavaScript extension over here. And as you can see, I also have a lot of extensions. So this JavaScript extension can disable JavaScript and also enable JavaScript. So it's in its default behavior, JavaScript is actually enabled, as we can see. So if I head over to one movie and I can see everything there is about this movie. If I go to the videos tab, I can see the videos. If I go to the photos tab, I can see the photos. But what happens if we disable JavaScript? Will we actually get to see anything on our screens, or will it be blank? So if I disable JavaScript, I have disabled JavaScript now. We actually get to see nothing. Simply because if you remember the steps of how client-side rendering works is a request is sent to the server by the client. We have sent a request to the server. And now the server is going to respond by sending an empty HTML page with only a reference to our JavaScript bundle. Then the browser starts downloading, parsing, and then executing the JavaScript and everything, and then it puts it in place. But if we actually see now, we cannot be able to get anything. Our UI won't be rendered because we have no JavaScript, and client-side rendering depends on JavaScript. But now we don't have JavaScript anymore because we have simply disabled it. If I go ahead and enable JavaScript, everything will come back as it was. So that's client-side rendering, and that is the demo for client-side rendering. So if we go back to the VS Code and now see server-side rendering, here we have SSR, the property, we have set it to false. We are simply telling Nuxt that our application is client-side rendered, but what about server-side rendered? How do we set it? Well, it's simple. You change this from false to true. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. So server-side SSR to true. Now we are telling Nuxt that our application is now server-side rendered. And so our dev server should restart. So there it is. So if I head back over here and refresh. So that's loading up. So okay. Okay. So now our application is fully loaded. So if I head over to home, whereby we can see all the movies, here it is. Now let's just go back to the same movie. And now let's see how it all works, how server-side rendering works. So if I open my console and head over to the network tab, refresh. So okay, it's loading. So if I go to this specific ID, now we are in the movie Fast X, and we are actually seeing the details of this particular movie, whereby we have the title, we have the description, the storyline, the revenue, genre, director, runtime, release. We have all that. So if I check and come here to my headers, first of all, we can see the request URL and the request method. We can see the preview, but now we have something. Remember in our client-side rendered application, we only saw a white blank loading page, right? But now here, once we enable server-side rendering, things change. Now we have our content. We have the images. And if I actually scroll, you will see all this data. But what about the response? What about our HTML file? Is it empty? The way our previous application, which was client-side rendered, was, is it empty? Well, if we check, it's not empty. We have content in here. So once again, I'm the web crawler. So you see this on the left side, this is you, and this is me. Now, me as the web crawler, I have content here, which I can see. I have a lot of content that I can index and help you rank at the top. So if I actually open this in a new tab, Okay. View page source. If I click line wrap, now you can see things now are different. I have names. Me as the web crawler, once I see this, I'm really excited because I have the title. If you go ahead in your Google tab and search for storyline, my site can actually be at the top because the crawler, me, that being me, I've come onto your site, indexed your page, and saw that, okay, the user is looking for this, and this site has this. So let's rank this somewhere at the top or at the second or at the third, because we can actually see that this site has content. So here's all the content of that single page. So this is everything. Now this is server-side rendering, whereby we actually see everything of that particular page or of that particular movie. Now this is for the movie, and we have actually seen that I have the title, I have the description, I have the actor's name, I have the overview of the whole movie. Now, what happens if we disable JavaScript? Let's see. Will we have our UI, or is it going to be the same as our client-side render application, whereby we get to see nothing at all, but rather we get to see a white loading page? Is it going to be the same, or is it going to be different? So if I go ahead and press my JavaScript extension and disable JavaScript, let's see what we'll see. Well, here's what we see. We still see our movie, our specific movie, which still contains the data. We have our image, we have our title, our description, and all our movie information. Plus, we actually get to see the actors. Everyone, we can actually see them. And we can also see other movies. Can we navigate from one P? Okay. Oh, okay. So there it is. So we have moved from the movie page, or from the movie page to the home page. You can actually see that we can simply navigate from one page to the other without any problem. But we have disabled JavaScript. So how does this work? Well, if you remember the steps that server-side rendering takes, is a request is sent to the server by the client. The server responds by sending back a HTML page that is fully populated with data. And then we get to see that data, or we get to see the UI, but the page is not yet interactive. So the HTML is sent with the styles and the data, but the JavaScript is not still there. And in our case, we have disabled JavaScript, but we are receiving the data because our application is server-side rendered. But let's see, does JavaScript work? So if I select this single movie and try to navigate to a different tab. So here's the overview. If I try to go to the videos tab, it doesn't work, simply because JavaScript is disabled. And so one of the features that we talked about, or one of the advantages that we talked about in server-side rendering, is whereby there is no connection barrier, in the sense that if a user is, let's say, in a place whereby the internet connection is not good, the user won't be affected that much, simply because the user doesn't need to wait for the site to load, for the JavaScript to be downloaded and fast. But he or she will actually have a good user experience, because in server-side rendering, the server responds by sending back the HTML, the CSS, and the data as we are currently seeing. But the JavaScript, it's still not there. The page is not yet interactive, but the user can scroll. Let's say I'm in a location whereby there is low internet, or the connection is not good. So I'm actually moving around the application. I can go to the movies, to the movie page, and move around until the JavaScript is now ready. So this is server-side rendering. So let me enable the JavaScript. So now the JavaScript is enabled. If I go back to this movie, I can now simply move to the different tabs. There it is. I can simply move from one tab to the other because JavaScript has now been enabled. And so let me also talk about one other thing. Let me talk about the static site generation, which we talked about last time. Allow me to demo something. We said that the major disadvantage of static site generated sites is the build time. That's what we said is the major advantage. Disadvantage. And allow me to demonstrate this. So if we head back to the VS Code, and okay, if I run this again. So we need to change this. So we talked about build time. So that's when we are building our application. So in order to build our application and tell Nuxt that, hey, Nuxt, now our application is going to be statically generated, we need to write a certain command, or rather we need to configure it in our nuxt.config.ts file. And how do we do that? So I'll use the Nitro property, set it to pre-render, which means serve ahead of time. And then I'll set the crawl links, I'll set it to true. So I'll go ahead and tell it, hey, crawl all the links. So if I come to my terminal down here, so if you can remember, the command that we use to statically to tell Nuxt that, hey Nuxt, now our site is statically generated, and the command you're going to use to build it is going to be Nuxt generate. So if I run that command, what you'll actually see, Nuxt is going to bundle everything up. So it's building everything up, and our HTML files are actually going to be kept inside the .output directory, inside the public directory, which you're going to see in a while. And so there it is. It has started, but it hasn't started generating our files. So here it is. Everything is going to be generated and kept in the .output/public directory. And if you actually see what's happening here is that each and every movie is going to have its own HTML file populated with data. As you actually can see, look at this. So this is what's actually happening. So imagine you had a big application and you use static site generation and you wanted to update something. So in static site generated sites, everything is static, nothing is dynamic. And so if you wanted to, let's say, update something, you need to pull down your application, update it, build it, then deploy it once again. And now just imagine we are the ones doing all that stuff. We have a new movie, and so we added the movie to our site, and now we are building it again. Now, this is the process that is happening. So now I need to sit down and wait for all this to take place. I don't know how many movies there are on this site. It's probably a lot. So I'll just have to wait here, let it build. But if we head over to our output directory, we can actually see that each movie has its own page. We have the genre. It also has its own movies based on the ID. So if I actually can stop this, because it's going to take long, the build time, this is what I was talking about when I was saying the build time, you really have to wait until everything has been built for you. But let's talk about the SEO. So if I head over to ID 9281, I can actually see that I have an index.html file, but inside it, it's not empty. We actually can see we have data inside here, and we actually have names. This is data over here, Moses Hochleitner. This is actually the data. That's why it's good for SEO. This is all the data of this particular movie. We can actually see that everything is statically generated. And the moment we deploy it, anytime that the user requests for it, no processing happens. It's just subbed immediately because it's already there. No processing is needed at all. So this is everything about this movie. It's the same with all the other files that have been generated statically. So everything is here, all this data is here. So that was the demo that I wanted to show you for client-side rendered application, server-side rendered application, and statically generated applications. So if I can go ahead and delete the .output directory. There you go. So that was the demo. For the universally rendered application, it's still the same. There's nothing different. There's nothing different. It will just work the same as the server-side rendered application with a mix of the client-side rendered application in terms of navigation. So if I go ahead and start my dev server again, and now head back. Okay. So if we head back, now here we are, and we can go ahead and start on today's topic. So we are talking about the Nuxt DevTools, but before we dive into the Nuxt DevTools, we must first understand what is Nuxt DevTool. Well, Nuxt DevTools, it's a set of tools, or it's a set of visual tools that were designed and put together to enable you as the developer to have an understanding of your application and enhance your developer experience. So what are the features of the Nuxt DevTools? Number one, we have improved developer experience. When you are building your Nuxt application, sometimes you might wonder, how does this work? How is this enabled? Why does it need minimal configurations? And so when you ask these questions, that's where the Nuxt DevTools comes in. And in terms of improving the developer experience, we'll actually see how this works and how everything works under the hood and how it helps improve your developer experience. So it also helps in performance monitoring, as we will see in a moment, whereby when you use the Nuxt DevTools, it tells you how long a plugin took to run, how long your server-side rendered page took. It gives you the metrics, all the metrics, and it tells you this module took this long to run, this plugin took this long to run. It helps you in analyzing and monitoring your application. It also helps in debugging your application. And Nuxt DevTool has a user interface for testing and documenting your APIs. So since Nuxt 3 came out, you can be able to build full stack applications using Nuxt 3. And with these capabilities, that means that you will be making use of APIs. You'll be creating your own APIs and using them. So when the DevTools came out, during the first features, you are not able, during the first time, you are not, we didn't have this feature for testing and documenting APIs, but as of Nuxt DevTools 0.6.4, we have this feature. We also have documentations for all the Vue composables, for all Nuxt composables that come built into Nuxt. And also we can be able to actually view the documentations of certain modules inside our DevTools, which I'll show you in a moment. Transparency, of course, since Nuxt 3 is so minimal and so easy in the sense that you can actually create your Nuxt application using a simple command, build your application with a few modules, and then deploy it with minimal to no configurations at all. It leads to some questions. How is the components auto-imported? How are the composables auto-imported? How are the modules able to be configured without me actually having to do anything? When such questions arise, you need a way to explain how these things occur. And so the Nuxt DevTools helps explain how everything occurs. We also have easy module install. Believe me when I tell you that you don't actually need to do a lot in terms of installing a Nuxt module. You actually need to click it once. You select the module, then that's it. You don't need to do anything after that. Nuxt will go ahead and handle everything for you. And you also have the settings whereby you can be able to customize how you want your Nuxt DevTools to look like. So with that being said, let's see a demo. We are still going to be using our movie application. So if I refresh, so down here, you could actually see this. I'm actually moving it around. So you can actually move it around your application. And so if I click the Nuxt logo, now here comes the Nuxt DevTool. So if we actually start by exploring the Nuxt DevTool, here it is. We can actually see the version 0.6.7, which is the latest version. We can see the version of Nuxt, which is 3.6.2. We can actually see the view version, which is 3.3.4, how many pages we have. And if I click here, it will take me to the pages tab, which I won't click as per now. We have 48 components, 377 imports, which are all auto-imported. We have 5 modules and 14 plugins. And when we talk about the monitoring, here it is. Server-side rendering to full load, 6.4 seconds. Page load, it took 5.52 seconds. And the navigation, it took 3.2 seconds. So if we start by heading over to the Pages tab, we can actually see it tells us the current route that we are in. All the routes, 8 pages. And so we have each and every page over here. You can actually see it's over here. If I click this, it automatically takes us to the search page. So if I could actually click on the Nuxt logo again, which closes the DevTool, you can actually see that we are in the search page. So if I click on the slash, which will take us to our index page or home page, if I click on it, it will go ahead and take us to the home page, as you can actually see. And so it tells you the name of the page, the middleware, if you have any middlewares, and then the layout, which is default. If we head over to the next tab, which is the components tab, you actually get to see all the components that you have. They are all listed over here. And you could actually search for any component that you had. And so we do have some built-in components that are built into Nuxt, like the client-only component, dev-only component, Nuxt error boundary component, Nuxt layout, Nuxt link, which is used for navigation from one page to the other, the Nuxt loading indicator, and the server placeholder. And then if you come down, it shows you components from libraries. With what components have you used? And so from the Nuxt image module, we have used the Nuxt image component and the Nuxt picture component. And from the UI template module, we have used the Nuxt welcome component. Whenever you bootstrap a new Nuxt3 application, we will normally see this Nuxt welcome component. So this is the component. And from Uno CSS, we can actually see the Uno icon, which is gotten from Uno CSS module. So these are all the components that we have in our movie application. If I come here and click on that, you can actually see this is simply a graph that shows how each and every one of your components are related to one another, how props are shared, and which component is dependent on which component. So you actually get to see everything over here. And okay. So if I just close the DevTool and click this compass-like icon, if I click on it, you can actually see a green window wherever I hover on a certain item or title or description or button. You can actually see that it's telling me, hey, this title over here, it's inside the hero.view component on line 47. So you actually get, this helps you in debugging. If you ever have an error, you can be able to see, you can be able to hover over a certain item and it tells you which component it is in and also the line, on which line is it in. So if I hover over this movie, it tells me it's inside the card component on line 14. So you actually get this. So if we head over back into our DevTools and head over to the Imports tab, you actually see all the composables that you have used. And so these are all the composables that are in our movie applications that we have created. The ones that have been highlighted are the ones that have been used. The ones that are in gray that have not been highlighted are the ones that have not been used. So these are our user composables, the ones that we have created. The Nuxt also comes in with built-in composables. So if I click on it, you can actually see all these composables come built in Nuxt. So the add route middleware, clear error, create error, there are a lot. And so the ones we have used are actually highlighted in white. The rest have not been used, so they have not been highlighted. And if we go down, you could actually see we also have the view APIs. If you have used any of them, they'll be highlighted. And if I actually click on one, it shows me where it has been used. So we have used the ref API in the search component, in the iframe model component. Basically, we have used it 13 times. So it tells me the number of times I have used it and where have I used it. And also, okay. And also, if I click on any composable, it actually shows me how many times we have used it and where we have used it. And also, you have the docs. And this is the documentation that I was talking about. If, for example, you forgot how to use a certain API or a certain composable that is built into Nuxt, you can actually go over there, click on it, and then click on docs. If I actually click on docs, what happens is that it takes me to the documentation site where that API or composable is actually mentioned and used. And so when I clicked on the reactive API, what it has done, it has taken me to the Vue.js documentation site and actually brought me to the place whereby reactive is mentioned, and I can actually read how it is used or how I should use it and the best practices. So if we head back over, we can actually see everything. And also you have the ability to toggle and choose whether to see everything as is or choose to see only the ones that you have used. So if I toggle it, it will only now show me the composables that I've used. So I have used only these composables. And if you just want to see everything, you could simply come and toggle it back. And now you'll be able to see everything. So if I head over down now to composables from libraries, you could actually see that from the Vue use library, these are all the composables that is provided by the Vue use library. And we can actually see whichever library we have used. And once again, if you don't know how to use it, you can simply click on docs and it will take you to that particular site or documentation where that composable is mentioned, and you could actually read how it is used, and you actually see where it is used. So if you download a Nuxt module, you'll actually see this. It will show you all the composables provided by that Nuxt module, and you can actually be able to go to that documentation site and see how it's So sorry about that. So here, this is one of my favorite features of the Nuxt DevTools, whereby I can be able to install modules with just one click. So if we are here on the modules tab, you can actually see total modules. How many modules do we have? We have 5. The views, the Uno CSS module, the Pina, the image module, and the I18N module. So if I want, I can go ahead and install a module, and then a sidebar will pop up. And I can actually see a list of all the modules that are available in the Nuxt ecosystem, and I can choose to install whichever I want. So if I can go ahead and install the color mode, the Nuxt color mode module, okay, it tells me I need to verify. So if I actually bring you back here, yeah. So it tells you that it needs permission to read and write files. So what I'll just need to do is I'll just copy this and go ahead and paste it in my browser. Come back and copy this token and paste it. Over here. And so if I press enter, what happens is that it will go ahead and verify, and now tells me that authorized. You can close this window. And so now we are authorized. We can go ahead and now install any Nuxt module that we want. So if I come here and install Nuxt module, if I choose, actually, okay, here it is. So I can go ahead and install this module, but before that, it tells me that, hey, Nuxt is going to run this command over here. And then after that, it's going to go into my nuxt.config.ts file and set the key, the nuxt.js/color mode key inside my modules array. Then after that, Nuxt will restart automatically. So a click of a button is, if I go and click install, what happens is that it will go ahead and install the Nuxt.js/color mode module. And if you actually want to see the process of what's going on, if I do that again, I believe I need to run sudo. But for just the sake of demonstration, let me just choose this module once more, a different module. If you actually want to see what's going on behind the scenes, we have an integrated terminal over here, whereby you can see everything as it's being installed. So in my case, I need to run sudo. So I need to configure that, but as for now, I can't be able to do that. But I hope you have understood what goes on in installing a Nuxt module. You just need to select any that you want, any that you need, and then you just click it. It will just tell you this is and this is going to happen. And you just need to click the install, and then after you click it, it's going to go ahead and install it. Then it's going to go to your nuxt.config.ts file, set that key in the modules array. Then after that, the server will automatically restart again, and then you have your module over there. So if we head over to the next tab, which is the assets tab. Now inside here, you actually get to see your assets, your images. If you have images or whatever images that you have, you'll actually get to see them in here. So these are all in the public directory. And so if I click on one of them, if I click on this one, you'll actually see I get the details of this particular image. I get to know the file path, where it's located, the public path, the type, it's an image, then the image size, and also the aspect ratio, then the file size, and also when it was last modified. And if I go a little bit lower, you actually get to see that we have a snippet over here. So in its rawest form, if you don't have the Nuxt image module installed, the Nuxt DevTools will go ahead and tell you, hey, this image that you have over here, use it this way. So set the width to this and the height to this, and also the source to this. So here, this is Nuxt telling you what to do, which is really, really great. And so you can actually go ahead and pick this and paste it in your code. If you have the Nuxt image module installed, it tells you, hey, use the Nuxt image component and set the width, height, and source to this. Also, Nuxt picture, which is actually quite the same with Nuxt image, but with a little bit of difference. And also, if you may have noticed, if I go to the Nuxt image tab, you notice that I have the docs over here. And if I click it, what happens is that it will take me to the Nuxt image module documentation, which, let me show you. If I click, it takes me there. So here we are. So we are in the Nuxt image module documentation, whereby we get to see about the Nuxt image component. Here it is. So this is really, really nice. And if you head over to the Nuxt picture, the same thing. You have the docs over here. And so if we move on to the runtime configs, which is here, you can actually see this configs. So in Nuxt 3, we have ways of exposing our keys to various environments, namely the server and the client. So we can go ahead and define our keys in the .env file. We can define them over there, and then we can go to our nuxt.config.ts and specify and tell Nuxt that, hey, Nuxt, anything inside the public object belongs to the client, and anything that is not in the public object, but rather is in the runtime config object belongs to the server. So a good example of this is I have a project over here. If I can show you how I've used it. So if I take you here and actually start this. So we need to head over to port 3002. So if I head over there. So if that's all loading up. So basically here also we can see that the private runtime config we have a small description down here that tells you these values are not exposed to the client, which simply means that they are only exposed to the server. So if I come back here, so this is our site that I can show you how it's used. So if I can extend this and head over here. So in my public runtime config, I have nothing because I'm not sharing or exposing any keys to the client. But in my private, I do have some keys. So I have the JWT access token secret, JWT refresh token secret, my Mongo URI, which is, I'm going to disable it after this. But so all this will be exposed to the server and not on the client. And if I actually take you back and show you how I've set it up in my code, in my nuxt.config.ts file, if I head over here, here it is. So we can actually see the runtime config object, which has all this. So here, everything will be exposed on the server. Nothing will be exposed on the client. If you want to expose any keys to the client, you just need to come here and write public. You create a public array and set this to secret. And so maybe you could just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the moment we do this, the dev server will go ahead and restart. So if I come back here again, okay. So it's restarting. So, okay. So the moment this starts up, you'll actually get to see that we now have something to expose to the client because we simply kept it in the public object. Okay, MongoDB connected. So it should be fine by now. Okay, it's taking up some time. So we can just continue moving on. And if we move on, we have the payload, which is simply if you have used the useState composable, which is an SSR-friendly replacement of ref, which actually holds the state and makes it available whenever on the available on the server and on the client. So when you use ref, if we decided to use ref in a Nuxt application, what happens is that if we have a state that we're storing and I go ahead and refresh my page, what happens is that that state will be lost. And that's why the useState composable was created by the Nuxt team to be able to hold that state and make that state available both on the client and on the server. So actually it has loaded up. So here it is. So in the public runtime config, our key was secret and here it is. So this is actually exposed on the client. And then on the server, this are the keys that are going to be exposed. So if we come back to the useState, we have the color mode, which uses useState on the hood, and it keeps the state. The state, for example, now my site is dark, and my preference, the system, which is also dark. If I refresh the page, it won't change to light because simply my state is still dark. I've not changed it. But if I used something like ref, what happens is that the value will change from dark to light. And so it cannot be there during hydration. It will just disappear. Auth loading, the icons, here they are, all the icons. Auth token, This is available both on the server and on the client. So it's not lost. Even if I refresh 10 times, it's still there. So if I come here, let me just go back to the movies. So if I come here to the build, to the open graph, what we see here is that these are actually meta tags that Nuxt tells us, hey, you need this tags, you need to add them in this particular page. So in this page, we have actually everything. We have specified everything. If we share our link on Twitter, this is how it's going to look like. We have an image, we have the title, and then you have the description over here, down here. If we share it on Facebook, it's going to look this way. On LinkedIn, it's also going to look this way. But if I head over to the search page, you'll actually see things are different now, simply because Nuxt is telling me, hey, you have 6 missing tags: the title, the description, and the URL, the Twitter URL, Twitter description. We have all this, all these are missing. And so I might wonder, how will I be able to add all of this? So if I head over to the next tab, you'll actually see I have a snippet over here. Nuxt is telling me, hey, you can use this composable and add this. This is actually what is needed. And if I actually take this and add it to the search page, what happens is that now it's fully optimized. And so if we move on and head over to the plugins, so it tells us that we have a total plugin of 15. You have a total plugins of 15, and each one of them, it tells us where they're used. Is it on the server or on the client? So we can actually see this is used on the server and how long it took to run. So actually here it is. This is the amount of time it took to run. And so if you click on the question mark icon over here, sidebar pops up and it tells you what happens. In the performance tip, you can actually see plugins runs before your application at runtime. The time each plugin costs will directly affect your application's initial loading time. So what happens is that plugins run fast, then your application runs second. So we can see the total execution time is 742 milliseconds. So now, if I head back to my other application and head over here, the server routes, this is the UI that I was talking about. This is one of the other great features that I like about the Nuxt DevTools, whereby we have a built-in UI for testing and documenting our endpoints. So inside anything that is inside the server directory, Nuxt will go ahead and scan it. And so here we have a middleware, which is actually inside the server directory. And we also have the API directory, which contains our auth directory. And inside that auth directory, I have various endpoints. So I have the login, refresh, register, and user. And actually, I can test them out. So I want you to notice one thing. So if I head over to the middleware and actually press here, you actually see that I have an option to choose from a list of HTTP methods. But what happens if I head over to the auth and go to the login endpoint? I actually don't have that option again. It's simply because when I was defining this endpoint, I set a .post a prefix. So the moment I set that and come back to my Nuxt DevTools, it reflects immediately, whereby I've told Nuxt that, hey, Nuxt, this endpoint, it's a post endpoint, whereby I'm going to send a post request. So Nuxt goes ahead and reflects that in the Nuxt DevTools. But if you want to be able to choose HTTP methods, what you can simply do, if I can just simply take you back real quick. There it is. If I actually show you what's going on here, okay. Okay, yeah, here we are. So if I, this is my server directory, then inside my server directory, I have the API directory, then the auth directory, and then you can see that I have login.post. So this, the .post prefix is actually a HTTP method, which whereby I'm telling Nuxt this is going to be a post request. And so this reflects in the dev tool, and you can actually see that it's going to be a post request. I cannot change it. But if I want to change it, if I want to get the options to choose, what I can simply do is come here, remove that .post prefix. And if we head back over to our browser, you'll actually see that now I have the ability now to choose from various HTTP methods. I can decide it's a post, a put, a delete, or a GET request. So that's all it is. So if I just head over back real quickly, and then just set it back to the way it was. Set it to a post request. You realize that now here it is, it's a post. I can't be able to choose any HTTP method that I want because I've specified that this is a post request. So if we continue, we have the storage. If you use the Unjs storage API, this will actually be reflected here. We also have the VS Code. If I click on the VS Code icon, if I click on the VS Code icon, what will happen is that if you have the VS Code server installed on your application, what happens is that your VS Code will actually be shown in the Nuxt dev tool. You don't actually need to code from your VS Code application, but rather you can code from the DevTools. If I click on the Tailwind CSS here, we actually see whenever you install the Nuxt, whenever you install the Nuxt.js Tailwind CSS module, what happens is that whenever you start your dev server, you'll first get your applications link. And after that, you'll actually see some Nitro and Vite information. After that, you'll actually see some documentation, or rather a link, which is localhost /3000, I guess. Actually, we can actually see it over here. Here it is. We actually see our Tailwind viewer. If I take you back, you actually see here down here, you actually see Tailwind viewer HTTP localhost 3002/_Tailwind. If I click on it, what happens is that it will take me to another tab, and then it will show me whatever I'm just seeing here in my DevTools. So you don't need to do that anymore, simply because the DevTools has handled that for you. Whatever you are going to see once you pressed that link is what you're seeing here in the DevTools. We actually have a small minimal documentation for Tailwind CSS, whereby you can select the colors that you want. You can go ahead and select your font families. You can actually see how they behave in different scenarios and in different sizes. The screens, small, medium, large, extra large, and extra large, the shadows, opacity, you get all this simple documentation inside your Nuxt DevTools. I also have the Nuxt icon module installed. So if I click on it, what will actually happen is the site will actually be opened up for me. This is the documentation for the icons library, whereby I can choose, or I can look for modules, or rather, sorry, not modules, icons. I can search for various icons and use them inside my applications from different icon sets. So we have hooks, different hooks that are used on the client and on the server. We also have the virtual files. If you have ever wondered how Nuxt does auto importations of components and composables, the answer is here. So this is where the transparency comes in. So it's not magic. This is why everything happens. You actually can see this is the file whereby components are auto imported. You can actually see the client only component is actually imported in this file. And our my component, which is auth login auth form, is actually imported. Here it is. So if I was writing import statements, this is just the same thing that I'll write, but Nuxt has gone ahead and done all the auto importation for me. The same with the modules, composables and components that they have, all of them are auto imported, and you can find them in these files. So you have inspect. If you ever need to debug, you actually can come here and debug your application. And lastly, we have the settings, whereby you can decide, you can customize the look and feel of your Nuxt dev tool. You can choose on the appearance, if you want light mode or dark mode, it's up to you. The scale of the names, overview, if you want it to be large, huge, normal, small, tiny, it's up to you to choose. And you can also decide on the sidebars, all this, whether you want the overview. If you don't want it, you can toggle it off. If you don't want the pages, you can toggle it off. So it's up to you. You can customize it the way you want. And we have the app, the analyzing everything, the runtime configs, the plugins, the build and analyze payload. On the server, we have the server routes, the storage, modules in terms of modules, their documentations and all that, and then the advanced part. And so lastly, let's talk about the Nuxtr extension really quickly. And so if I take you back to my VS Code, so here we simply see some files. So allow me to close all of them. So we have the Nuxtr extension. If you can actually see the pop-up, it's Nuxtr. It's spelled with an R at the end. So if I click on it, I have this simple sidebar where it shows me the actions. If I click on it, if I click this, what it will actually do is that it will go ahead and run a build command. If I run dev, what it will go ahead is it will go ahead and start my dev server. Generate, it's also a command for building your statically generated application. We have preview, we have post install, and down we actually see dependencies. So for this project, which was a Nuxt auth, these are all the dependencies that I have, but that's not all. If you actually see across the name, I have the version. So the types are JSON Web Token, it's version 9.0.2. And if I look further, if I just hover over it, we actually see there's a trash icon. So if I click on this trash icon, what happens is that it's going to go ahead and uninstall this dependency from my project. And we also have the up-down arrow, whereby if I click on it, a pop-up will appear showing me the different versions that are available for the JSON Web Token types. So if I click on it, you'll actually see a pop-up popping up, showing me the different versions that are available for this particular dependency. So that's searching, and there it is. So these are all the versions that are available for this dependency, and it shows me the current version that I'm in. So that's version 9.0.2. If you want to downgrade, you can actually come here, select the version you want to downgrade to. And if you click on any of this, it will go ahead and downgrade it for you. But after it has downgraded, let's say you chose 8.5.5, it will go ahead and downgrade it to that. And it will show you that, hey, we have downgraded to this version, but there's a current version, which is 9.0.2, which is the latest version. It will go ahead and show you that also. So as for now, we are not going to downgrade. We'll just stick on and stay on the latest version, which if you can actually see, it's installing it, but we are on the latest version. So we have snippets. If you wanted to add any snippet that is not available in the Nuxtr extension, you can go ahead and add your snippet. We also have the file templates. You can go ahead and create any new template that you want. But before that, allow me to take you to the settings, whereby you can actually configure how you want this extension to behave. So on your right, you can actually see that we have opened the settings tab. And inside here, we can actually see some settings. So it will go ahead and tell you, hey, whenever this extension is installing a dependency, which package manager would you like us to use? So mine is set to PNPM. You can go ahead and configure it to NPM, YARN, or PNPM, whichever you want. You can go ahead and configure it to that. So, and also if you're using Nuxt in a monorepo, you can go ahead and specify the path it is in. You have to tell the extension that, hey, extension, Nuxt is actually in this path. So, so that it can be able to locate Nuxt and be able to add dependencies, create files, layouts, pages, all that for you. And so we have open items after creation. So what this simply means is that after, let's say you have said that, hey, create a component for me. After that has been created, do you want me to open that particular file for you and show you what has actually been used or not? So, and also we have another configuration whereby when it's creating your view single file component, how do you want it to look like? Do you want it to start with the template or the script? So there are different people who like their single file components differently. So others prefer the templates at the top, others prefer the template at the bottom. So they could either prefer script top, template bottom, or template top, script bottom. So you can actually go and configure that here. You can say that, hey, I want the template to start and then followed by the script. So mine is the script at the top, then template at the bottom. And so the same with the layout. We have the template. Which is the default. We have the page also. And then in terms of the API to use in Vue, do you want the options API or the composition API? So the default is the setup, which is the composition API. If you're still using the options API, you can go with normal. So if we check here, I have the style tag. How do I want it to look like? Well, I've not toggled it because I use Tailwind CSS. I don't write vanilla CSS. So I either use Tailwind CSS or Uno CSS. I use vanilla CSS. That's why I've not toggled any of this. But if you want, you can go ahead and toggle it. So when it's creating your view single file component, it will create the script, the template, and then the style tag. And then beneath it, you can actually see it tells you, when we are creating the style tag, do you want it to be scoped, or we should not add the scoped property? So what this means is, if you select scoped, what you're saying is that this style belongs to this view file only. If you don't specify the scoped, what it simply goes ahead and does is that it will just write the style, and whatever style you add in there will be able to apply to all the other view files that you have. So that's it. So allow me just to show you how you can use this. So on your Mac, you can click on Command-Shift-P. If you are on Windows, you can click on Control-Shift-P. It will go ahead and open this up. And so if you just type the Nuxtr command, what it will just go ahead and do, it will list for you all the options that you can do. You can configure CSS frameworks. If I click on this, it will actually show me a list of all the CSS frameworks: Tailwind CSS, Windy, Uno, Vuetify, and you can actually click on each and any one that you want, and it will go ahead and install that for you. You can install dependencies, create new component. Let me create a new component. What's the name? It will be test demo. And it tells me, hey, inside your components directory, you have a couple of other directories. You have the auth directory and header directory. Do you want us to go and keep it inside there, or do you want to create a new folder and keep it inside there, or do you want to keep it at the root of your components folder? So I'll go ahead and select components folder. So there it is. It has already created that for me. You can actually see test demo.view. And if I just come here, you can actually see that it has created it for me at the root of my components directory. And it has used the composition API setup, whereby the script's at the top and the template follows. I've not toggled the style tag. That's why you don't see the style here anymore. So that's it. from me. We have actually seen how everything works. But before I leave, let me show you a little bit of a magic trick. So if I come here at the bottom, here in my terminal and run npx nuxi add component, magic component, press enter, what happens is that we have a new component, a new view single file component that has been created for me. I've not used the Nuxt DevTools. I've not used the Nuxt extension. Rather, I have simply used the Nuxt CLI. So there are a lot of ways of actually improving the developer experience when using Nuxt. You can use the Nuxt DevTool, the Nuxt extension, or the Nuxt CLI, the Nuxi CLI, to create components, layouts, composables, middlewares, API endpoints, all of that. You can actually choose whichever way you want and actually enjoy using your Nuxt application. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing, Selemon. I now open it up to anyone with any question. Kindly raise your hand. Any questions from the community? Awesome, awesome. Great. So that's amazing, Selemon. So I'd ask the community, if you've not yet followed us on Twitter, follow us at Kenya View. We're also on LinkedIn and YouTube, so you can check out our socials. So with that, let's meet next week. Cheers.
Thank you.